Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Rich Walsh, give us a call tonight. 412-575-2600 is the number. We do have a lot to talk about tonight. How about Frank Coonley out as Pirates president? And it sounds like in is Travis Williams. He was former COO of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was now with the New York Islanders. Williams did a lot with the Penguins his time there, 10 years. He helped develop PPG Paints Arena. He helped with the build of the Lemieux Sports Complex in Cranberry. Also worked out the Pens television deal. So he'll have a lot to take over. His number one priority, I would imagine, is try winning back the fans. That is the number one priority for anyone over at that Pirates organization. Trying to do whatever he can to win back the fans, which is going to be tough because what the fans want, I would think, is a bigger payroll, and that's not going to happen unless Bob Nutting, loosens up those purse straps a little bit and gives him a little bit more money to work with. But it sounds like that Neil Huntington will be around at least for a year. I would think that would be the case. He's not going to come in here and then start looking for a general manager too. I think he's going to give him a year, see how they do. That would just be my guess with Neil Huntington, or they would have fired Neil Huntington when they fired Clint Hurdle. So now they're looking for a manager. Looks like they found their president, which will be announced on Monday, which I find very curious because there's a Steelers game on Monday. I also find it very curious they did it today with the president here. It sounds like a news dump a little bit in a way. That the Pirates, their big news comes out on days where there's so many other things going on. Paul Zeise, he had a fun day on Twitter today. I was following him, and it seems like he got into a couple little...
I don't know if fun is how I would describe it, you know what I mean? But, it was an interesting day on Twitter.
Interesting day on Twitter.
Again...
You got some people riled up?
Well, because, again, it's all about, to me, just because the standards in journalism have gone way down in the last 5 to 10 years, that doesn't mean that I have to accept that or like that.
Yeah.
And my feeling is when you want to talk about, for instance, breaking a story, what did you really report? And that was what was at the crux of the whole.
Well, it's better to be second and right than first and wrong, and that's my phone, by the way. And when the Pirates make an announcement, why does anyone have to say he was the first person to report it? Right now, it's Frank Coonley is out, so I'm going to go.
Fans don't care, but it's a very competitive business.
Yes,
you know
it is.
that.
I know.
You like to, you've broke stories before. You like to be the first guy.
Yes.
My thing is, if you're going to be the first guy, though,
own it.
Be right, number one, and number two, actually report what is fact. You know what I mean? In other words, don't throw something out there that you just kind of half-heartedly report and basically say it might be true, it might not be true, and then when it comes to fruition, say I was first.
Yeah.
That was my issue with the whole. But again, it doesn't matter. The larger issue is Frank Coonley is gone. What's his name? Travis Williams is going to
be your colleague Jason Mackey of the Post-Gazette.
Yeah, Travis Williams will be the guy. And here's the thing. I don't believe that he will come in, like you said, immediately and change the general manager.
There's no way that's going to happen.
But
maybe in a year.
I would be willing to bet over the course of the next year there are going to be lots of changes. You change the guy at the top.
Yes.
And I talked about this on my radio show tonight. You change the guy at the top, he'll take 3 or 4 months and just sort of get the lay of the land and figure out who does what and this and that and everything. Maybe bring a couple of guys with him that he really trusts. But as he goes through it, then he'll start to make changes.
Yeah.
And some of them subtle, some of them not so subtle. And probably this time next year, the Pirates front office, the Pirates scouting operations, they'll all look very different than they do now.
You know, the other thing, too, you're bringing a guy that's been in hockey for the last 11 years or so, or even longer, I don't know, and he's not really familiar with Major League Baseball and who would be the right GM and who would be the right scouts, who would be the right people to hire. So, yes, he has to get his feet wet. He's not going to come in and say, Neil Huntington, you're gone. I think Neil Huntington is good for at least a year. And then the evaluation process.
Here's the other thing. People are assuming that Travis Williams is going to be the one that's going to ask Neil Huntington to leave. It could be Neil Huntington decides, you know what, this isn't the same model I was with Frank. I'm not as comfortable here. Now is probably a good time to break.
So the big question, and we'll get to this after the break here, but the big question is Bob Nutting willing to give them more money to work with? That's the big question. That's what it comes down to. I don't care what Travis Williams comes in and says at his press conference on Monday. Same with Bob Nutting. But if you're not going to spend any money, what are you going to sell to the fans? What can you possibly sell to the fans?
Let me ask you this.
We're getting a new scoreboard.
Knowing everything you know about Travis Williams, do you think he would have come and taken this job if he didn't at least get some assurances that they were going to have a chance to compete?
I would imagine that that's the case. You would hope that that would be the case, but it is a promotion for him. He does get to come back home. He's a Duquesne grad.
Okay, he gets to come back home.
And he's the president of the Pirates.
That's fine, but you understand what I'm saying.
I totally get what you're saying. But if both of those guys don't stand in front of that podium and say, we're committed to spending more money, too. We're committed to putting a winning product, and we're not just telling you that. We're not just saying we want a World Series because, I want to go out and shoot 65 tomorrow. That's not going to happen. I want to do it, but you don't play enough to do it. So you want to win a World Series, but you don't have the tools and the pieces to do it. You need to say, we are going to go out and get the tools, even if it means spend 20, 30 million. That's all, spending 20, 30, 40 million would still keep you under league average.
I understand that, but
yeah, I know.
My point is, I don't know that they're going to say that, but I have a hard time believing that Travis Williams would take this job if there weren't at least some assurances that they were going to try and do some things to get better.
All right, we got to take a break. Back with your phone calls, some of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.
The Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call is brought to you by Ireland Contracting, celebrating 25 years as Pittsburgh's #1 home exterior expert in roofing, siding, windows, and gutters, where honesty and integrity still matter.